I was asked to talk a little bit about some of the realizations that our team has had over the past years trying to connect the creative world. So let me just make sure the slides are up. There we go. So for those of you that don't know, Behance is a massive platform of millions of creative professionals who either come to explore creative work or show their creative work around the world. And as Kevin alluded to in the conversation, we are trying to help people connect and get organized. And the impetus for all of this was about 7 years ago, thinking about the fact that the creative community is really the community that makes life worth living, right? The creative community sort of makes us, compels us to buy things, to engage with things, to learn, help us understand the world around us. The creative industry is massive, and at the same time, the creative community is probably the most disorganized community on the planet. And a lot of folks in that community would say that themselves. And so our thought was, well, let's actually use technology to help connect and organize the creative world. And of course, early in this process, when we would say that we're trying to help organize creative people would be like, hey, good luck with that. But it was something that we were really passionate about. And so over the years, Behance has become a platform that powers a creative portfolio display all around the world in all sorts of shapes and sizes. And what we learned over the past 7 years is really that meritocracy and innovation and really access to opportunity on the web is not necessarily a foregone conclusion. You think that the web would just be a leveling of the playing field, and in fact, that's not necessarily the case. What I thought I would do today is just talk through 3 challenges and key realizations for us that we encountered in the process of connecting the creative world that I think are relevant not only to what we were trying to do in the creative industry, but also for all communities. And I know a lot of folks in this room and at DLD are thinking about the power of creative communities on the web and what that can do for different industries. And these are 3 things that really struck us that I thought might be helpful. And so the first I would just talk about is this notion of the long tail, which has always been something super exciting on the web, right? Is the catering to all these different preferences, that normally would not be able to be addressed, in sort of the old school economy. And it's exciting and it's true. And certainly for communities, the long tail is really exciting. I mean, here's a network of millions of knitters around the world. Talk about long tail of communities. You have, obviously cooking sites and websites. You have 500px, which is for photographers. You even have a growing community of infographics designers. And so this is an exciting kind of manifestation of the long tail. The problem that you also should consider is the notion of verticalizing the world. And when you have suddenly, these intense verticals, it's also, verticalization is also, in essence, isolating. And I would argue that discovery obviously happens in the intersection of fields. And the clashes between creative fields oftentimes are the impetus to realizations. And obviously this is not a new idea. This dates back to the Medici times in Italy, where the architect and the photographer, or the fisherman are hanging out in a cafe and discover a new type of net, that solves a major problem. And so, that's certainly one of the things that we were thinking about in the early days of Behance was how do we make sure that photographers follow the work of illustrators, who follow the work of motion graphics artists, and especially as the tools we use become more readily available and we start to venture into other fields, we need to know, what we want to create. We need to discover stuff. A few things from Behance. 95% of the creatives on Behance follow creatives in a creative field other than their own. So the fact that there's not a toy design community and a motion graphics community and illustration community, but the fact that these communities overlap, in the Behance platform is really critical. Similarly, we find that over half of the folks on Behance actually publish a project in their portfolio outside of their primary creative field. So there's a negative, to the verticalization and to the catering of the long tail in sort of an isolated way that we should think about. And we see examples of this all the time. If you take, there's a huge light design community on Behance. There's a huge graphic arts community, or graffiti arts rather, community on Behance. And then we started to see a whole new field called graffiti light art. And there's actually a great team in Cologne, Germany called Licht Factor, who's been hired by Sprint and Absolute Vodka and a bunch of other brands to do great campaigns and stuff. And here is just a manifestation of the intersection of creative fields. So we also realized that when you have the overlap of creative fields, you get a more diversified response to stuff that happens. Obviously, creative work is sort of how we interpret what happens in the world around us. When we came into work after the big Japanese earthquake, we started to see literally thousands and thousands of projects being published by creatives all around the world across fields responding to crisis. And this sort of manifestation of the creative world and the clashes between fields, I think, is pretty critical. So the realization here, the first one, is that you want to host the overlap. I think that's what some of the greatest communities that change industries will do, is they'll host the overlap and sort of foster these collisions that prompt innovation. So the second challenge is a big thing on the web that I think is worth talking about. And obviously the like button, is now ubiquitous. And we've really empowered the masses to help curate the web around us in all sorts of fields. On Behance, our little version is the appreciate button. Every time you view any sort of work on Behance in any creative's portfolio, you can appreciate it if you like it. But the question is, who is the judge? Who should be the judge? If I show a great piece of architecture, to 1,000 random people, does what they think collectively matter more than, say, 10 of the greatest architects in the world? What should matter more? And which has made our team start to think about the difference between the critical mass, which is how many people like something, and the credible mass, which is who likes something. When people are appreciating the work, if it's a fashion designer with an incredible portfolio of fashion design, can we give that person more weight? And can that help illuminate some incredible work that, say, a graduating senior from RISD has done? Maybe they're not known yet in the whole world, but maybe that work is, dare I say, just as good, if not better, and more enterprising than someone who's been in the field for 20 years, who happens to have all the kind of old school or old boy network supporting them, but has not been recognized yet. So how can we tap that credible mass? And this has really influenced the way that we think about curation on the web. Obviously, we have the community curation, just generally speaking, and then as we kind of go down the funnel, we try to apply some of this interesting data around the credible mass, and even sometimes having professional curators weigh in. And I think that that's sort of a more balanced answer to how we rise quality to the top on the web. And if this sort of works out, if we can tap the credible mass, not only in the creative community, but in any other community, perhaps we're living in this new data-driven perpetual talent addition. Perhaps everything we do, everything we write, everything we say, we comment on, we influence, can somehow contribute to opportunity. Opportunity for us that is, deserved based on merit more than anything else. And so that's the second realization, that we've come to, is just the power of the credible mass in fueling a new form of meritocracy. The third thought that we've been thinking a lot about over the years is the notion of attribution, and how seldom attribution is actually supported on the web. The web was so exciting in the early days, just sharing imagery and access to information and this perpetual kind of sharing. You go on Tumblr, and you see thousands of amazing images that just blow your mind, yet oftentimes have no idea, who the photographers were behind this imagery, and no way to link back to their portfolio and then follow them going forward, or hire them, or buy some of that imagery. Obviously, there are entire middlemen and entire industries that exist just to kind of try to replace this. When we see advertising and things that are interesting to us around, there's seldom attribution attached to it. And this is something that the web should be helping, but in fact is oftentimes hurting, just because there's no sort of uniform way of supporting attribution on the web. Obviously, we're thinking a lot about this as a platform trying to empower millions of creative careers. We're trying to think about how can we carry attribution. If you think about it, every portfolio, that you might see in the creative world, without exception, is probably a lie. Because it's usually one person showing their portfolio when in fact there are many people associated with that portfolio. There are the photo retouchers that retouch the photographs. There's the stylist. There are all these other people that are a part of every project. And can we start to map and share credit and attribution in a consistent way? Can we show that a piece of work in someone's portfolio was actually done by 7 other people? And can you track, who did what part? I think that's very exciting for opportunity, and it's required. We're seeing other sites start to think about this as well. Pinterest, now has this attribution line. So anytime you pin something around the web from Vimeo or Behance or other places, the attribution line is carried. So in contrast to Tumblr and some other sites, you go to a pin on Pinterest, and there actually are 5 links to the person's work. The image itself, but then obviously, the title of the project, even to the person's portfolio. And this is really exciting to us. I think that this is the way the web should manifest attribution in the future. And one thing that's really exciting for our team, and Kevin mentioned this, is we recently joined Adobe to try to help connect the creative world on a much broader scale. And the notion of building in attribution and sort of connecting people as they do their work further upstream in the creative process, I think is one of the most exciting things, for the future of creative careers that luckily, our team gets to influence going forward. So the realization here is that attribution is a key part of all of this stuff. And with attribution and a lot of the other things I just mentioned, I would actually suggest that maybe discovery at some point will outweigh the power of referral. Maybe we will simply start to discover, incredible talent and the right people to work with for the right project purely based on merit. I think that's really exciting. So how will the web advance creative industries and culture as we know it? First, you want to foster the intersection in whatever you're doing and avoid the temptation to verticalize yourself, even though you can, because this is the best way to promote the clashes and push ideas forward. If you tap the credible mass rather than be totally swayed by the power of the critical mass, you can actually allow the best talent to take the spotlight. And if you have an ecosystem that fosters attribution, then you can really discover and match the best talent with the best opportunity. And this, is what I like to call creative meritocracy. I think it's one of the most bold dreams we can have right now for the future of the creative industry, and therefore the future of culture, right? And what the possibilities are for all of us. And with that, I want to thank you for having me.